I'm Elizabeth Wardle. I teach writing at the University of Central Florida, which is now the second largest school in the country. We have 60,000 students. It's a lot of students. And I'm the chair of the Department of Writing and Rhetoric. And it is the task of our department to help all faculty and students in the university think about writing and learn to write better, and to support students when they encounter kinds of writing that are difficult, and to help prepare them for the kinds of writing that they do in the rest of their lives. I've also been directing the first year composition program since I graduated with my PhD. And so in that capacity, I'm really charged with helping to think about what is the curriculum in the first year composition courses in our program. So what is it that students are being taught? And then I research how students learn to write and how people teach writing, and what are some effective ways of doing that, or maybe not so effective ways of doing that.
I'm Doug Downs. I teach writing at the Montana State University, and I also I coordinate our writing program, which means that I talk with everybody who's teaching writing classes like the ones that you're in, and see if we're all teaching kind of the same curriculum, and get ideas from everybody about what projects we should teach and things like that. So I just help make sure that most of the writing courses cover the same kind of material. For myself, I do a lot of writing research when I'm not teaching and when I'm not coordinating curriculum for the writing courses. What I like to research, it changes from year to year, but what I like to research right now is how do people read, and how is people's reading changing as we read more and more on screens and less out of books. And I also really like researching, this is going to sound funny, I like researching how people learn to research. And so I'll spend a lot of my time watching people do research and figuring out how they actually get it accomplished, whether they're trying to find sources on the internet, or whether they're trying to figure out how to study a particular question that they have. And then, think of hopefully new and better ways for them to learn how to do that research.
When I talk to students who are using our book, one of the first things they ask is, why did you write this book? Why are you making us learn about writing? And the answer is that as a teacher, I think that one of our main jobs is to make sure that what we're doing is really effective and that it's working. And that if it's not working, that we really have the responsibility to try to think of something else. And so as a person who had been teaching writing, I had been really frustrated. I felt like my students weren't learning what they needed to learn, and that what they were learning in composition wasn't really helping them later. And so Doug and I came up with this approach and this book as a way to try to help students take what they were learning in first year composition and use it in all the other settings in which they use writing. And one of the things that we know from research that's a little bit depressing is that usually when students leave a first year composition class, they overwhelmingly say that what they learned there was totally irrelevant to them, that they don't need it later, and that they don't see how it can help them. And so as a person who teaches writing and oversees writing programs, I think that's a huge problem. So one of the things we've been trying to do is figure out what we can do for you as students that will help you later, so that when you are faced with a new kind of writing task you've never done before, that you can approach it and be successful.
I started thinking about writing when I was looking at what students in my writing classes were doing, and seeing a lot of double standards, where students were supposed to follow one set of rules, but then I would look at what professional writers were doing, and they were following really different sets of rules. So a lot of my students, they would come into my first year comp classes and they would say, can I use I in my paper? And I'm reading a world full of professional writing where everybody's using I, not necessarily all the time, but when it's appropriate. And I'm thinking, why do we have this one rule for students that you can never use I in your writing, and have this other rule for professional writers where they just use I when they need to? And there's all kinds of these rules like that. And so I started thinking, there's a lot of research and there's a lot of expertise out there among writers about how writing actually works. And are we really teaching that in our writing classes? It seemed to me like we sort of weren't. And so I started thinking about, how would you do a writing class that taught sort of those truths about writing, rather than the little set of rules that we make up for students to just follow. And it turned out that I thought, the best way is to have the students read the research. Have you guys encounter that knowledge on your own, just like anybody else would be who's learning it, and then go through and see how that changes the rules for you.
So if you're in a class right now and you're using this book called Writing About Writing, you might be thinking, what is this? What are these crazy people asking me to do? Well, it's really actually not a very complicated idea, but it is going to seem strange. So if in your high school classes you were writing about literature, you were preparing for the AP exam maybe, or you were writing 5-paragraph essays for standardized tests, what we're asking you to do in Writing About Writing might seem strange at first, but we hope that it will seem engaging to you as you go along. So what we're basically asking you to do is think about the ways that you use writing in your life, and think about what we know from research are the marks of good writers, what good writers do, how they succeed, what they know about. And then we're trying to share that information with you so that you can be successful in all of the ways that you use writing in your own life.
One of the things about your composition course, if it's using the textbook Writing About Writing, is that we need a way to let you see a lot of different ideas about writing from the people who are coming up with them directly. And so the book has lots and lots of people saying all kinds of research that they've done about various different kinds of writing. What that does is lets you have the option, depending on how your course is set up, lets you have the option to ask a lot of different questions about writing. And there's always going to be, or hopefully there will usually be, something in the textbook that is talking about a question that you have, or a question like what you have, that will always give you a place to start when you're doing your own research on writing. So that's one of the things that we really hope that the textbook will be helpful to you.